Evening, everybody, and welcome to Just a Little Bit, Episode 12, The Last Spell and Testament. Before we dive in tonight, I just want to give everyone a quick announcement. We're going to be doing a special stream for the next few weeks where we dive into the playtest for Tales of Xadia, a Dragon Prince-based tabletop RPG game that's currently being playtested. If you love Dragon Prince, it's a great opportunity to see more of the world of Xadia and to watch us learn the Cortex system and probably see where we eventually fail to stick to all the rules. It's a narrative-driven cinematic system for playing tabletop games, and we're going to be running it on Wednesdays at 7:30 Eastern Time. So definitely consider joining us for a little lighthearted romp through Xadia. It's definitely a big departure from what we're doing right now in Oprah. So
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So steering away from that announcement and back into tonight's game, we rejoin our party deep below the floodplain, south of Truehome. The party has delved into the heart of Naramsim's Athenaeum. Once the school and fortress of the Arden-scale wizard Naramsim, the Athenaeum has remained largely untouched for the last 500 years, since before the end of the War of the Scales and Snow, which transformed the face of Oprah. The party is here to find a lost relic, Naramsim's Orb of Arcana, and win the trust of the Regaliant Atelier, a concern of merchants who have recently come to Truehome, offering trade and friendship. Maybe. The party stands in Naramsim's school, having overcome trials, bruised both physically and emotionally, but curious. Glowing orbs of magical light bob overhead, flickering as though struggling to remain lit. The light they cast upon the room an uncertain glow. Dust lays thick upon the floors, undisturbed for hundreds of years by any footfall until the party came. Stone tables line the open space of this room, while the tall shelves of books and octagonal cubbies of scrolls sit in neat rows on either side, a treasure trove of knowledge long abandoned at their fingertips. On the table before them, a number of books and a carefully scribed tablet of cuneiform language of the Arden scale lay as though its owner has simply stepped away for a break. A bust of an Arden scale woman with the face torn by claw marks stares blankly up at the room from where Twid's eldritch blast has sent it careening away. The visage of the ancient Arcanophant Kishar, both impassive and self-assured, stares up from Valen's feet. The room still echoes with the words plucked from hundreds of years ago and saved within the bust. So I began my greatest work, my pearlescence. I've taken the feelings and sentiments from hundreds of humans, and I've been storing them as if they were awful. Now, perhaps, I've found the perfect tool for war. As the voice fades, you are left alone with memories and dust, the flickering light casting the room into strange twilight. What would you like to do?
So the bust is still in one piece?
Yeah, so the bust itself is about it's about life size, so it's a size of an orange melon. You can see Kishar's features and it look very similar to the one you saw in the previous room, but it is as though someone has taken their claws and raked right across the face.
Twit is gonna walk over to it and go, "Does anyone object to me ending this bust, but for real this time?"
I mean, she seems like a bad lady, so I'm fine with destruction.
By all means, we certainly have the time.
Twid will Eldritch blast it with Lucretia a few more times.
It takes a little time, but every blast you can see starts to chip away at it. And eventually, like about 5 blasts in, it just and shatters into chunks. And you can still see little bits and pieces of Kishar's features, but like for the most part, it is long since damaged.
Twit is going to collect a few of the pieces that like still look like there's some features on it and put it into their bag.
Okay.
We'll just tell the Atelier that we found it this way.
You gonna make something with those, Twid?
I don't know. You never know when inspiration will strike.
Okay.
That's what we're gonna call that now. Inspiration.
That is indeed a word.
If we look around, do we find any books or scrolls or things about the Athenaeum itself?
So you're looking for like a history of the Athenaeum?
Yeah, something that'll help us figure our way through that front door.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to make an investigation check for me, you can look around to see if there's anything likely. I will say any of you who don't speak Ardent Scale, since it's or Scythian, the Arden Scale language, you do so with disadvantage because you're trying to piece it together from what you can find inside the texts that you're looking at.
So everybody but Twid for the next 45 minutes.
Everyone but Twid for the next 45 minutes will essentially have disadvantage as you're trying to piece together what the books might be about based on like illustrations and styles and things like that, but not knowing the language.
Well, I rolled a natural 20 on the first one, but then a
Mhm.
6 because of disadvantage, so it's a 13.
13?
I rolled a 2 and a 3 with
What?
a +0.
What should I be looking for?
Calvin, do you want to add a D4 for guidance? As you get a ghost daughter on your shoulder to help you look?
+4. It's 17.
17? Okay. So I will say that you take a little time and you look through the bookshelves. And Thorin, you're a little annoyed. Like, you're already very off-put by the fact that you've heard Kashar's voice several times today, and that this whole place is sort of like a temple to the knowledge that the Arden Scales used to do war against your people, the Ashahai. So you're looking through the books, but it's very half-hearted. You kind of open them up, and one or two of them that you opened have very clearly like Arden Scale warriors in like the illustrations, and you're like, ugh, and you like slam it closed and toss it back on the shelf.
I can't read this shit. I don't want to look at this shit. I don't want to be here.
Also,
I will
Twid got a
say-
21.
21. Okay. So Twid, actually, I'll get back to you. But for Calvin, you look through the books and you find a couple that seem likely. As you flip through them, they don't have any very clear arcane sigils or formulas. So you're getting the feeling these might be more history books or like fact-based information rather than like actual arcane studies. And then I will say in particular, while looking through the scrolls, one of the cubbies jumps out at you as you realize these scrolls all seem to be more carefully packaged. And you realize that they are magic scrolls as you pop open the packaging for the first one. And you realize that there's a small collection of there's 8 scrolls in total, kind of tucked into this cubby that seem to be magical.
Please tell me one is a scroll of Dispel Magic.
I will say, given your abilities, Calvin, I will let you know that you have found a scroll of Detect Magic, 2 scrolls of Identify, a scroll of Expeditious Retreat, a scroll of Dispel Magic, a scroll of Knock, and 2 scrolls of Floating Disc.
Can you go back a little slower? Expeditious Retreat's the last one that I got.
I'll drop them in the chat.
Much easier.
Yeah. They'll go in the Players Lounge. Oop. Shoot.
And hopefully this time we'll remember we have them. So we won't go like 8 sessions and be like, oh yeah, we have scrolls.
They're just in the chat for you right there.
Calvin, what did you find?
It's a couple scrolls. They might be sort of helpful. I'm not going to check the chat in there because all of our camps would go away. But I'm sure at least the Dispel Magic is useful.
I dropped them into the room chat too for the stream.
Ah. Well, those
Don't
are,
worry, I got you.
are
I
much,
thought about
much
it
more
as soon as I
useful.
dropped it in.
To identify. Or even knock. Knock could be useful. We could, hopefully get in that way.
Knock would be easier. Let someone else dispel it or figure out how to get around it more than once.
I mean, I can knock on a door. You just
No, it's some wizard bullshit.
And I will say with your 21 Twid, while you're sort of looking through the books, and you know that Calvin in particular is really interested in finding something about the history of the school, you do find one that seems to be a history of Naramsim himself.
Twid will run over with it and go, Calvin, 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 look! It's history of Naramsim. And hold it up proudly.
Is there anything in there about, this place? Did you look?
I think you're the only one who can read it right now, Twid.
Twid will open it to like the table of contents and look.
You do see that the book itself contains some information sort of about, I will say, reading through like the intro really quick, there's like a short little forward message. You realize this book was written by one of Naramsim's apprentices, a wizard by the name of Shivarin. and that it is a collection of Shivaran's reflections and experiences being taught by Naramsim. And there is a section that's dedicated to their time at the school.
Yeah, some baby wizard person wrote about their time here. It's like a journal about the school. I'll go to the section about the school.
All right. And I'll say just give me a quick intelligence check. This is going to be like, as you're trying to flip through these pages quickly, trying to learn something, that your intelligence is just going to dictate how much you're able to absorb in a short period of time.
And can they have guidance on that check?
You can give them guidance if you would like.
Its Twid also gets a ghost daughter.
That's a D4?
D4.
Oh, hello, my ghost daughter friend. Well, very thankfully, that D4 helped a lot, because I got a 4, and that will be a 15.
15? Yeah, so flipping through it takes you a little bit to find a section that seems relevant, but you do find the part that details their time at the school. A couple of things are talking more about their, like, what brought them to the school and what their experience was like getting ready to work with Naramsim. They talk a little bit about Naramsim being known as the description of the door that was in the very far corner of the room. So very quickly you're able to deduce that you're probably in the right place.
But we'll relay this to Calvin.
Perfect. Did we want to check any of the other rooms out, or are we just heading on?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, do we want to see if we can get into his study first and then check out anything else on the way out?
That room is.
There's something going on in the study. If there are any traps, we have the energy to take care of them.
The study is most likely the room that holds the most interest for us, but I'm not opposed to looking at the others after.
The summoning circle. It's my interest.
I mean, it's up to you. You're free to go wherever you want.
Please don't summon a demon. I don't have it in me to fight one today.
It seems to me like the only places we really need to look would be the scriptorium, storage, and then the study. Just because storage might have useful stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll go through the rooms really quick. Again, you have a map, but I'll just say, you know, there's storage, there's the contemplation room, the scriptorium which you're in currently, the dormitorium, the challenge hall, the summoning circle, the kitchens, and the servant quarters. And those have all been labeled with the Arden Scale uniform, except for that door that's in the very center, which you now know is his personal office.
Shall we try knocking?
I think we should try knocking on the office door. I think that's a good step next.
Alright, so you leave the dormitorium, the scriptorium, and you head back into the main room. The gentle sound of falling water still rolling through filling up this atrium essentially. And the lush plants all around you, many bearing fruits that seem just ready to be eaten, are still sort of give this room a strange peace and tranquility after all the struggles you went through in the trials to get here. And you come up to the large doorway. So there are 4 doorways set along this stone atrium, 4 on each side. It's for 8 total. And then there's that last door at the very end, which is this large curving stone door with a large serpent just about to clasp its own tail wrapped around the door. And on the door itself, in stone, is a handprint, an impression of a handprint, very like when people save their children's handprints in like plaster or cement.
Has anyone ever cast knock before?
Nope. But, I think I can give it a go.
By all means, Cal.
Do I
Knock
have
away.
to roll? Because it's technically on one of my spell lists.
No, since you are technically a wizard, it is above your spell level, but I'm going to say for this, with the scroll prepared in mind for students, you can indeed burn it and just allow the roll to happen. So you take out the scroll and unroll it, and the spell forms are a little unfamiliar to you as they're definitely from the Ardent Scale School of Magic. But after a moment, they all start to snap together, and you can eventually finish the scroll, and you slowly drone out the language of creation as you read from the scroll, and magic sparkles across it. And as that happens, the sparkling blue of the letters slowly coalesces, so it wraps around your hand, in particular ending on the back of your knuckles. And you feel compelled by the spell itself to raise up your hand and tap the back of your knuckles to the door. And as you do gently, you hear a deep boom, boom, boom of your fists making far more noise than you would expect as the spell completes itself. And after a moment, you hear a deep and the sound of stone moving sort of out of sight, as something behind the door seems to be giving away. You see a section of the door sort of flows as though the stone is actually moving, and it reveals itself to be a keyhole.
Didn't we find a ring of keys?
I do, in fact, have a key that we found in, what was his name again? Fabio? In
Oh, right,
Fabio's
Fabio had
thing.
keys.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Good old Fabio.
your friend, the water horse that you fought, did indeed have a ring of keys.
He's not
Is
my
that what
friend.
you tried the door?
Yeah.
Sexy water horse.
Do any of them
sexy
look like the
waterfalls.
right shape or size?
You go through the keyring and you finally come to one that seems to be a little bit different from the others. It is in like a deep bronze and it's larger. That does seem to match up with the keyhole that you're standing in front of.
I stick it in.
Ooh, baby.
Put it in.
As you stick the keyhole and you click it over, you are surprised to see that the key keeps moving freely and rotates about almost 360 degrees. Rotates around, so you're close to the side, and as it gets to the very end, you hear and the door and pops open just a little bit on its hinges, and you realize it pushes inward.
As the key is rotating, Twid's head is rotating at like the same angle following its rotation.
Oh, you can do that too because your head's not attached to your body. It's only mildly creepy.
I'm not
Yeah, of all
even
the-
watching at this point. Like,
Of all the things Twit has
Just a
done,
little
that's
bit.
not that bad.
So as you do that, and the door pops open just that little bit, and you can feel sort of like a rush of air as though something was inside was pressurized as it blows past you.
Wow, good job, Calvin.
Yeah, it's a good thing I've been studying, a little bit.
I mean, clearly we are in a school.
You've been
Not
studying.
my.
You've been studying just a little bit.
Haha.
This is the stream where we try to fit in our name as many times as possible.
I
Go!
was gonna say we've made that joke about 5 times now. It's dead.
Yeah, no, we're done with it. Moving on. So the door is now open. What would you like to do?
I want to kick the door in. It's open, but I'm mad.
Okay, so when you go to kick the door, and as you do, you realize that there's potentially a small miscalculation. The door is very heavy. So as you kick it, it doesn't really give. It moves slides, a couple inches open, but you find yourself kind of being like, ooh, that hurt just a little bit more than I wanted it to. When you put your leg down, you can feel like a little pinch in your calf.
I just like lightly like kind of pat your shoulder, like that'll do. Do you feel better?
But if you do
I
a
feel
concerted
nothing.
effort, if several of you push against the door will the rest of the way open smoothly, but still heavy. And you realize as you kind of look around it that the door itself out of stone is probably a good like this thick. Somebody definitely didn't want any company in that fight.
I can appreciate the sentiment.
And a stone hallway leads down into darkness. Even for those of you with dark vision, you don't see anything at the end. Your dark vision ends still in the hallway.
Even my 120-foot dark vision.
Actually, I forgot about your 120-foot dark vision. At your 120-foot dark vision, you just see the ends, probably a good like 80 feet down, is a staircase going upward, like a spiral staircase. So you can see the bottom of the staircase, and then it spirals out of your vision.
I see a staircase, but I don't know where it goes.
Let's find out. And Thorn's gonna start walking.
I'll cast light again so we can see.
So you cast light, and it casts that same golden glow. Those of you with dark vision obviously can see further, in particular Twid. You head down the hallway, like I said, about 80 feet, and it's nicely carved stone. And here along the walls, with the light, what it does reveal to you is the entire thing is painted. And it is painted with these beautiful tiled walls. So it's actually like the walls of cities, and they're this beautiful blue and turquoise color with like different various like mosaics in the actual walls. And then above them, you can see someone has painstakingly and beautifully rendered these flowing gardens. And you will probably realize, several of you who are history buffs, this is most likely a depiction of the Hanging Gardens of Sipar. At one time, Sipar was known and famous for an elaborate series of public gardens that bloomed like an oasis in the middle of the deserts. And that has since been copied in their new homeland. So you are aware of them being something that is sort of like an art and scale cultural phenomenon.
They do make beautiful gardens. I'll have to give them that.
You reach the stairwell and you follow it up, slowly spiraling upwards. And you're surprised because you go a little bit further up than you would expect. You spend about 10 minutes climbing this stairwell. As you do, you come to the very end. You can see that there's a simple wooden door in front of you on a small landing. And the stairwell goes no further up. And the landing itself has two little niches on the sides, each side carrying just this these small clay urns that have been very nicely painted to depict Arden Scale's wizards, most likely. Staff, Arden Scale. It doesn't look like the visions of Naramsim you've seen, so you have to feel these are probably references to some other magical figure.
And is there like a door or a way forward?
Yeah, there's a simple doorway set at the end of the landing.
I want to go look at these urns to see if there's anything inside of them. Like, are they
Alright.
open or are they like sealed on the top?
As you go and actually look at them, you can see that they have a small lid on the top of each, but I assume you are going to
Yes.
open it up? Yeah, as
Oh
you
yeah,
do.
like do not stop, just open it.
As you do, you pull the first one up, there's this faint, luminescent purple glow that comes from within, and the room fills with this beautiful smell of like fresh jasmine.
I turn to Thorn, I'm like, we need one of these. This is amazing.
It would cover up the smell of mulch.
Calvin will reach in and grab one of his little artificer things and tinker with it for a second and then just hold it out to Valen. And it's shaped like a little bit of lavender. And while you hold it, it smells like lavender.
Okay, well this works too. Thanks, Calvin. I guess I don't have to steal.
Is this going to poison us?
That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Can you be poisoned?
I think so.
Can I be poisoned?
You can be poisoned.
Oh right, it's disease only, not poison. I keep forgetting.
Don't worry, Pork Roll will save us. He's
I would
immune.
say paladins can protect you from some things, but not everything. Being a paladin protects you from some things, but not everything.
Flip is just gonna kind of hurry over and try the simple door and see if we can just get through
Yeah.
there.
So the door has a simple knob. You turn it, and there's a click, and then it just swings wide open for you. And as it does, you are surprised because you've been in the dark for quite some time now. Besides the light of Valen's spell, as you push the door open, you walk into a room that is flooded with natural light. And it takes a moment to kind of like blink it away, and it's the bright light of day. But then in particular, you notice as coming from one wall, the light has a bluish tinge to it. After a moment, you step into a large room. It is a domed roof, and you can see that actually it is designed to domed, but like it looks natural. Like there's these craggy, almost like rocky pieces, like the way it juts upward, and you can see through these huge slits in it out into like the sky. And in particular, as you look to one wall on the left, part of the wall is covered with what looks to be falling water, like a small waterfall.
Flip is going over to the windows as they are and just like staring out at the falling water, kind of entranced a little bit.
I'll say as you do and you step up towards the window to see the falling water, if you glance downward, you can see the large circular entryway that you came through. And you can see below several members of the expedition you're working with are still diligently cleaning and separating things, and you can see Eramir, the representative of the Wearlight Consortium, is still there at that large work table he had with all the plans rolled out, sort of drawing these large, like basically making sketches of everything that he's seen. And they're probably a good, maybe like 100 feet down from where you are, so you get to feel like this has been a raised vantage point. And in particular, I will say that all of you, when you were outside, remembering looking at the side of the lake where this would be, only stone. There was still some water falling down where they hadn't dammed everything up into the small pools that exist below, but like you remember this being unbroken stone, definitely not windows. You get the feeling like someone might have noticed them if they were.
Yeah, if we had noticed this from the outside, we would have just come in this way.
Right.
But
Well,
that's the point.
you know wizards and their fancy hidden stone windows.
Unfortunately.
Wizardly shenanigans.
Do we
I will
see
say,
any,
Narms-
like, sorry. Go ahead.
I say Naramsim has good taste, though. This is a very beautiful room.
Agreed.
Admit it's beautiful, Thorn. You know it is.
I am actively practicing numbness. I feel nothing. It is more productive than screaming. Do I see a desk or anything other than waterfall and a cavern?
Yeah, so now that your eyes have adjusted to the light, you can see that the section that you're standing on is slightly raised. There's another section that sort of steps down like a little bit split level-y feeling. There's about 5 steps that take you down to a deeper recessed area, and within it you can see there's this large circular stone table. And the whole thing has glyphs all around the outside. And then floating in the middle, about this large, is this what you think might be what you've been looking for this entire time. A large glowing, softly glowing green jade orb floats in the air there. You can see what looks to be individual pieces of the orb contained within that are rotating against each other. Every once in a while, rotating in such a way that they seem to be a single solid orb, and then moving away to reveal that there's like little nooks and crannies inside. But the whole thing is essentially that large, and it does match the description you had previously from Lord Meadowsweet of the Orb of Arcane that you're looking for, that belonged to Naramsim himself.
Thorn will call it question. I found it.
I'll, Flip realizing that everyone down there can't see us. And... Oh, yeah, right. Oh, we found it. Well,
I'm gonna burn that scroll of detect magic and see what else in the room shows up.
Scroll and you cast the spell, and as you close your hands on it, it disappears in this poof of smoke. And as it does, the smoke kind of tingles against your eyes, and after a moment, you can see everything cast in the faint spell of magic. As you look around, you see the walls glow faintly, with magic that detects to you as transmutation spells anywhere that the windows are. Is essentially the effects of transmutation, and there are these large, like floor to ceiling sort of stripes of clear stone. And then as you scan through the room a little bit more, you feel a strong pulse of magic from the entire pedestal, and then another pulse of magic from the orb itself. The pedestal detecting as a combination of multiple magics, and same thing for the orb. And then besides that, you can feel a small tug of magic from a little alcove set just to the left, where there seems to be a number of like comfortable chairs pulled up.
Is there any writing on the pedestal? Has it been an hour yet since we were in the scriptorium?
I'm gonna say you're getting really close to the end now, having done like the careful inspection on the way up and stuff. I will say that you probably have like 10 more minutes of detect magic, or of comprehend languages. So you still can understand. It's a little hazy, but not terrible.
Are there any like words on the pedestal or on the orby itself?
The orb contains no letters. Everything seems to be done in these beautiful, like, moving geometric patterns, so that as it realigns itself, it seems like they constantly move and tesseract a little bit into each other. Very like a MC Escher sort of moment as the pieces of the orb move. The pedestal itself, you take a moment to look at the glyphs, and they do not comprehend to you as like a particular language. You recognize them that they're most likely magical glyphs.
These are not words. Twit is actually going to wander over to the like window overlooking the expedition, and is going to turn to Selwyn, who is just like hanging out, and go, "I want to try something." And then Twit is going to snap Selwyn away, and then Twit is going to try to snap Selwyn 30 feet out, so Selwyn is outside in the open air.
So your small familiar that looks to be like a sprite made out of fabrics, like a doll version of a fairy, reappears on your shoulder from its invisibility, and you just give a quick snap, and Selwyn pops away again. You snap one more time, and Selwyn appears for a second, almost like dropping before they realize they need to fly, and then like slowly fluttering back up, and they are indeed 30 feet right in front of you. You realize you might have taken them mildly by surprise.
Selwyn, can you go give an update? Can I talk to Selwyn, like, telepathically, if they're within 100 feet, right?
Yes.
And, Selwyn, can you go give an update to Aramir? And say we're
You see
maybe
a little tiny fabric arm reaches up and gives you a little salute before the fairy kind of gives a couple bobs and then dives down towards Aramir. The only problem you know is that I don't believe the Selwyn have a language.
One moment. Common, Sylvan, and Loaming, I think you said?
Yeah, Loaming would be the other one. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they knew Common. I assume that's what you want them to talk to with Aramir?
Yes.
What would you like Selwyn to deliver as a message?
I think we're in the room that has the Orby thingy. This has not been a fun trip.
Okay. You see them zip down and sort of bob in the air, sort of waving their little arms to get Aramir's attention. You see him kind of jump back a little bit in surprise as the little fairy like bobs right into his face. And then you see him with this look of confusion, like shaking his head. And Selwyn sends back to you the impression of someone saying like, "Oh, well that is good. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help."
I told Aramir our updates, everyone. Or Selwyn did.
You did what?
What exactly did you tell him?
That we're in the room with the Orby thingy.
And that's all?
Did
And that
you specify that you had found it?
said in the room with the Orby thingy.
I think we're good, but I think now we need to decide what state we found this orb in. And, you know, figure out what story we're going to tell Lord Meadowsweet when we get back. Because I don't know about all of you, but I'm a little unsure about just handing over this type of information to someone that I no longer hold in very high regard.
You mean you're nervous about passing off a super powerful magical object to some guy who worships a fanatical cult leader who thinks that she's like the next coming of a god?
Yeah, a little bit. He also seems to like to
I was sort
take
of
away
wondering
his
when that other
servant's
shoe
free
would
will.
drop.
To be fair, I feel like there have been a lot of Orby thingies we've seen while we've been here. And I'm still not 100% sure what we're looking for or why we're here, but figured an update was important.
See,
That seems in character.
yeah, it does. See, I was going to propose a different option, which is slightly more difficult than what Flip here is suggesting. I don't know. I don't think I mentioned the Scales have offered to pay handsomely for this in particular.
I'm gonna cast Identify on the orb.
Oh, are you using the scroll or are you casting it yourself?
I will use one of the scrolls.
Okay, so you burn another one of the scrolls for the Identify, and as the spell finishes, what Identify tells you.
I will turn to Thorn though after you mentioned this, and I'm like, oh, so you're making deals with them now? I'm so proud of you. You've come so far.
I didn't make a deal. I went
oh.
to see what they knew about Naramsim and suggested that I did not trust Lord Meadowsweet. They made the offer.
You just
So
see
mild
Valen is
point-
like smile and like, oh.
So mild point for you, Calvin. In order to cast Identify, you must be touching the item throughout the casting of the spell.
I'm aware.
Okay, so I will say, before you begin the spell, you reach out to the orb to touch it. As you do, you're just crossing over the edge of the table, and your hand arches back and you slap yourself in the face. And it feels like something grabbed your hand and essentially, like a force pushed your hand back.
Did you mean to do that?
I'm gonna look at Porkroll and have Porkroll try and touch the orb.
You ask Porkroll to touch the orb, and as you do, Porkroll watches up, reaches their arms up, stops, turns to you, and tries to scoop you up in its arms.
Aw, he's giving you a hug.
More wizard shenanigans.
And I will say, Twid, or no, it wasn't Twid that has the best. It is Flip, I believe, that has the best passive perception of everybody.
It is
Flip,
not
as
Twid.
this is happening, you have a good chuckle to yourself, but you notice that at both times, two of the glyphs that were on the pedestal, one lit up the first time, a different one lit up the second time.
Calvin, what exactly did you feel when you tried to touch it?
It's hard to
Like-
explain. Has Twid ever like slapped you with his mage hand?
Not yet, but I can imagine the feeling.
Not yet, but the night is young.
Looking around, do I see like any like loose pebbles or anything on the floor?
I will say, yeah. Enough time has passed that there are some bits of the stone that seem to have, like, chipped or fallen, so you can find a pebble with relative ease.
I pick one up and I don't try to throw it like to hit the orb. I just try to see if I can like throw it across the table and see if anything
Okay.
happens.
You throw it to get across the table, as does it, and rolls across the other side.
I would have specifically at this point been watching the glyphs. I assume none of them lit up.
Nothing lit up.
Twid
So I'll
Sorry.
point out to everyone else that it looks like a certain glyph kind of lit up when Calvin went to touch it, and a different one lit up when Porkroll went to touch it. So I'm thinking there's maybe like multi-level protection going on here. Maybe against like sentient beings and constructs. Like maybe it overrid the constructs orders, but sentient beings it like does sort of a charmed effect.
I wonder. And Thorn is gonna try to pick it up. Because I'm wondering if he would have thought to ward against Ashahai, or if it's specifically against like humans or wizards or shit.
I would need you to make me a wisdom saving throw, please.
And I will be watching the glyphs.
Natural 20.
Ooh. So you go to reach over the platform, and as you do, you are suddenly filled with this intense longing to be home. Like, it's one of those, like, someone pressed play on a really terrible Hallmark commercial in your mind, and you're picturing, like, your family there, and you're all laughing and having a great time around the table on Ashahai holiday, and you're like, gosh, I've been away from home for so long, I need to go home. And then
And
you're
then
like,
I remember
wait a
there is
minute.
no Ashahai holiday. That never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, wait a minute. Every Ashahai holiday usually involves us having like some kind of complex game of like capture the flag or some other like really quasi war game holiday. And you realize that you were almost under the effects of a compulsion.
Real glad I saved on that one.
Twit is currently
But
looking.
do I
at-
man-
What is your total come up to?
23.
23. You still, as you about to touch the orb itself, you feel like an invisible force against the palm of your hand.
So I
But
still
you don't
can't-
feel like it doesn't push you away. You can feel it, and it's very much almost like there's like about 6 inches away from the orb itself. Like it's encased in glass. It feels kind of cool to the touch.
There's a secondary barrier about here where the compulsion stops and some sort of almost dome begins.
And I will say, you saw a different glyph light up this time. Everybody, because now that Flip has called attention to it, you can see that they're like lighting up.
Everyone should be careful. This tried to compel me to return home, which for many of us is very, very, very far.
If I use my longsword, can I like poke the orb with my sword?
It's a great question. Yeah, you know what? Yes. So if you using your longsword, you can tap, and you hear like as it hits the orb that seems to be around it.
Does
So-
it move at all? Like,
So the sword hits the barrier, not the orb.
Not the orb.
Do I just waste the scroll of dispel magic?
It would certainly be quicker.
Will you?
As asking this question, I will say, seeing the various glyphs, you notice that set in that same tabletop, but outside of one of the glyphs, on the far side, is a small indent in the table, like basically like a cutout square that has what looks to be sand on the inside.
Can I blow the sand away?
As you blow the sand, it moves a little bit, but you get the feeling like it might be slightly deeper than, like, just surface level.
maybe you can draw like a glyph in it. Maybe like there's a missing glyph to like deactivate the table.
Back in the little alcove, you said there was another magical aura. Can I go over there and look for what it was?
Yeah, so if you head back into the alcove itself, you can see that this, like I said, is set up with some built-in seating around the outside, and then what looks to be like another 2 or 3 seats that have been kind of pushed in here. You get the feeling like someone might have been like clearing out space. And I will say, give me a quick investigation check. You have the magic, you have the detect magic to help guide you, but you have dropped it since before entering here.
15.
15. You kind of poke around for a while, and as you're doing so, you reach towards one of the chairs, and you can feel kind of like amongst the. You're basically looking inside the lining of the chair to see if anything's falling between the cushions, and you do come out with a very beautifully made stone stylus. And 6 silver pieces.
Is there? Do I recognize the glyphs that are on the pedestal?
Give me an Arcana check.
18.
I will say that you recognize 2 of them as different versions of a glyph of warding.
Do I know a glyph for off?
You don't have glyph of warding in your repertoire as a wizard as of yet. You've been warned about them, as they can be very dangerous for adventurers, as glyph of warding can be used to like hold spells, essentially. And you get the feeling like kind of looking around and using your arcane knowledge and what you've detected and stuff before, that it's possible that each of the 12 glyphs that are on this pedestal are 12 different. It can be 12 different glyphs of warding, all set up to protect the same area.
So a dispel magic won't help us because it'll only get rid of one.
Well, dispel magic would get
Maybe.
rid of somewhere between 0 and 12 of them, depending on how well Evan rolls the dice.
Gotcha. I mean,
Uh,
maybe try drawing that snake symbol.
As I say, in the sand, do I know a glyph for like off that I could draw to add to the set?
Give me an Arcana check.
Roll well.
Natural 1.
Nothing that comes to mind. There's a couple of like things you can think of from being an arcanist or from being a artificer, but nothing jumps out as like an off spell. Most spells, the problem is keeping them powered long enough at your level of experience.
Could I prestidigitate all the sand out of the hole?
Sure. As you prestidigitate the sand, and it kind of, and eventually you get about this deep into the sand before you just hit stone.
Was there anything hidden in the sand?
Nope, nothing was revealed inside the sand. Just a plain, simple bottom to it.
As this is all going on, Twit is walking around the room looking for something round. Anything round.
I mean, there's like a cushion or 2 that are round.
Anything spherical besides the orb?
Nothing spherical besides the orb.
Okay. Twid was looking for a fake Orby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can always create the illusion of the orb. It's not going to last very long. But in a pinch, it can work as a distraction.
Twid is gonna try and mage hand grab the orb. Like the actual orb.
You cast Mage Hand. Another one of the glyphs powers up, and as you do, you feel the spell fade. Not dissimilar to that experience you had with that turtle friend.
Flip is gonna grab the net that he carries with him, and see if I can drape it over the orb.
You throw the net, and it falls, and it hits that 6 inches away, and as it sits there, it just and falls down onto the table below it. And then you see it as it hits the table, slides further, and just slides off the end.
What if I thorn whipped it and tried to pull it towards me?
Are you going to cast Thorn Whip and try to pull it towards you?
Yes, I don't even stop for an answer.
As you cast it, it dispels, and that same glyph you saw before lights up.
I glare at that glyph.
Calvin, can I see the pen? Or stylus?
Sure.
Twitter's going to take the stylus and, I guess, attempt to push some of the sand back into the little sand pit.
It takes you a minute to like scoop up the sand from where it was discarded, but you do push some of the sand back in, and it gives you like a nice layer of sand inside.
Flip, which glyph keeps lighting up the most?
I'll point to whichever glyph seems. I don't know. We've had.
Do the one that lit up when you cast Mage Hand.
Yeah.
Okay, Twitter's gonna try and draw the glyph that lit up in the sand when they cast Mage Hand.
You have painter proficiency, right?
Yes.
Use your painter proficiency.
Do you want me to add Dex to that as the proficient? Or okay.
Yeah, because you're recreating.
And a D4 of guidance as Flip realizes what you're trying to do and summons his ghost otter from his Tarika card.
Uh, 24.
You draw it back in, and it settles into the sand itself. And after a second, the whole bowl glows with this soft golden light. And as it settles back in, the sand is soft again, with no design drawn into it.
Is the
Try
glyph
casting Mage Hand again.
Yeah, see what happens.
Twitter's gonna try casting Mage Hand again and grabbing the Orby.
You cast Mage Hand, and you see your Mage Hand appear, and it floats over, and it slaps against that circle of force that's around the outside of the orb.
Hey, good job, Twid.
Twid,
did
draw
it?
the rest of the glyphs.
Okay. And Twid will try drawing as many of the glyphs as they can.
Start with the force
Alright.
field glyph.
You want me to roll for them all individually?
Yeah, start rolling for me.
Okay.
1 year later.
Later.
Add some D4s.
I was gonna say, if you just go online, you can probably just really quick find something that'll let you roll like roll 11 d12 d20.
You can
Okay.
use the dice roller in D&D Beyond and select however many of any particular die you want to roll.
They're not paying us yet. Don't you dare give them a sponsorship.
I was gonna say, you're simping real hard for someone who's not paying us.
Twid got 16 on the force field one.
So you draw that rune in, and you do feel like you completed that one.
8 for whatever the next one is. I don't know what any of the other ones are, but Twid is just going down the line now.
We'll say like you draw them in, and you see the same golden glow, and then it fades, and golden glow, and then it fades. And you get through the whole list. And I won't belabor the point because you can take your time and mess up a couple times if you need to. There's once or twice where like you draw it in wrong, and rather than that soft golden glow, the sand kind of just like swirls around itself and resets it. But eventually you've drawn all 12 of the glyphs.
My hand is starting to cramp.
Is that even
So
possible?
soon?
Did you get sand in your gears?
Is the orb still floating there, I assume?
Orb is still floating there.
I'm gonna just slowly reach out and see if I can touch it now.
You reach out slowly, and you go to touch it, and as you do, your hand goes indistinct, and you hit what you think is the force field. You feel your hand go through, and then it hits the orb and goes through the orb.
As someone who often uses illusion spells, would I recognize what is happening?
Give me a. That's a good question. Give me an Arcana check.
Flip is a ghost.
I mean, I just talked to him. Oh, that's a 7 on our con.
It doesn't seem like an illusion to you, but then again, a good illusion wouldn't. So you are not sure.
Can I touch the orb?
Sure. So you reach out to touch the orb.
Yes.
You get to where the force field would be, and you just right against it. And I would say when you reached over and you turned invisible, your passive perception is hide, or you're turned intangible. You can see another of the glyphs lights up.
Oh. So I don't think we took all of the protections out.
And it is not the last glyph that was written down.
I'm a failure.
I'm confused.
I think you can only turn one off at a time. Whatever the last one,
Oh.
whatever the last one you did is the one that's off, and the rest of them are on.
Ah. So which one should I draw now?
Draw the one that just lit up, and then flip. Try and touch the orb.
I will draw the one that lit up with flip.
Yeah, you draw it and it glows with that golden light once you get it right. But your hand hits against the outside of the orb and you kind of feel around it. And as you're doing so, you suddenly get filled with this, and give me a Constitution saving throw.
That's another 7 for my con save.
You are covered in the feeling of itching. To the point that you have to step away from the orb and just start violently scratching yourself, and everyone else notices another of the glyphs lights up.
I feel like I'm just like itching and fall to the ground and actually just transform into an otter to just try to like wiggle and rub myself on the ground as much as possible.
So you turn into a cute little otter and just rolling around on the ground, trying to scratch yourself. And I will say, like, after about 10 seconds, 12 seconds, the itching fades.
Twit is mage handing and helping to itch flip.
I will stand back up and turn back into my humanoid form, looking away.
But the force field when you felt was still there.
It's on a weird pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Porkrill's just gonna beat the crap out of the pedestal.
Okay.
Does a bunch of force damage help?
I will say, to save us all having to roll for stuff, Porkle goes ham on it for a good 5 minutes or so. Doesn't scratch or ding or hurt anything. After a certain point, you see one of the glyphs fire up again, and Porkroll turns around and walks out of the room.
Pork roll?
Stops in the hallway and just stands there. Like, you can see him standing in the hallway.
Does he come back when I tell him to?
You ask, and nothing happens. And there's this long beat of, like, about 5 seconds, and you ask again. And when you ask the second time, he returns.
Twit is gonna go out into the hallway and look into that second vase, because I think we only looked into one of them, right?
You open the second one, it also has that glowing purple, and you still smell the same thing, that fresh lavender smell.
Can Twid pick up the vase?
No, so when you go to pick it up, you realize that it is secured in that cubby.
Twid is going to mage hand and see if they can pull anything out of the vase.
Yeah, so your mage hand scoops in and comes back out, and there's nothing in it.
So just to clarify, so when Flip touched the orb and had to make the con save, Flip could make contact with the orb itself.
He made contact with the force field.
Okay, so we need to dispel the force field glyph. But then if we dispel the force field glyph, then it'll be illusory.
Or intangible, or something untouchable. I would like to look around the room for any, like, growing lavender plants. And
There's nothing.
at the
There's
same-
no plants in this room. I will save you the question.
Was there any lavender growing in the garden downstairs?
Give me a wisdom check. Calvin, give me an intelligence check. Or actually, no, Calvin, give me an arcana check.
17 on the wisdom check.
Not that you remember, no.
17 on the Arcana check.
17 on the arcana check. You look down at the glyphs, and you sort of give them a look over, and one of them does stand out. It hasn't lit up yet, and it is more intricate than the others.
Twid, draw this one.
Twid walks back into the room. What did you say, Calvin?
Come draw this fancy glyph.
Okay. Twid will waddle over and try drawing the fancy glyph.
And it glows with the same golden light, and then when you reappears, the sand is cleared out.
Thorn is gonna try to grab the orb.
Give me a wisdom saving throw.
Can I have a D4 flip?
Sure. Yes.
I'll allow it since
16?
16. You reach over and one of the glyphs glows, and you suddenly get filled with that same compulsion to go home. But you remember that feeling, and you're like, no. You tried this one already. It didn't work. And your hand reaches through past where you know the force field to be, and you are now touching the actual orb.
I'm gonna pick it up.
So you pick up the orb and you pull it loose, and it resists you for a second, almost like it was sort of something was holding it there, and you kind of pop it loose. And after a moment, you now found yourself holding the orb, standing in front of the pedestal. As you do, the orb, your hands go flat through the orb, and kind of clap against each other. The orb wobbles up into the air and floats over in front of Calvin.
Oh, it likes you.
Some wizard bullshit.
I'm gonna grab it.
You reach up, you put your hands on the orb. As you do, that exact moment, you hear this and you realize that all the faces along the inside that have been slowly rotating, like lock into place, making this elaborate pattern around the outside of it. And then there's a soft glowing golden hum, and you can see between like the joints of the various faces, there seems to be a golden light glowing from within. And a moment later, that same illusory image of Naramsim appears.
Does he say something?
Yeah, he looks at all of you for a moment. Same thing as before. Geisha gives everyone like this look, looks to Twid, and this time as it starts to look at Twid, immediately its eyes shift off of Twid onto the rest of the party, and then stops at you and says, "Greetings, student. If you come this far, you've proven yourself worthy of tutelage. Beyond that, resourceful enough to come to my inner sanctum. What I leave for you is one of my last works, and perhaps, whilst most powerful, also most dire. I fear that the war has taken a turn that I cannot agree with. I have to disagree with the choices that the other Arcanophants have made, and it has made me unpopular. I have taught magic and raised many wizards in the ways of the arcane that follow my own ethos, hiding here on the edge of our empire, and then left largely alone. Unfortunately, the choices the other Arcanophants have made recently to escalate the war by creating new weapons has left me disquieted, and so I needed to take more dire measures. And I'm afraid I was found out. While I'm to leave this note for you, I'm already anticipating that Kishar's hit squad will be coming here to remove me from my station. If that is the case, I apologize, for I'm about to give you knowledge that will come with a weighty cost. And as he says that, his image disappears, and the whole room is filled with this deep primal roar. And as the image settles back in again, you are seeing the form of this gigantic dragon. But where many of you have seen it before, the more traditional chromatic dragons that follow the plain red, blue, black sort of spectrum, or maybe rarely have heard about the chromatics, this dragon is this beautiful gemstone pale pink and massive. And you can see that as it's roaring, there are several ardent scales around it, too small from the illusion for you to be able to realize what it is. But as it does this, as it lets out this roar, there's this pulse that shifts through the whole room, and you suddenly feel yourself filled with this bizarre welling up of like pure, like euphoria. And many of you find yourself thinking of that one special somebody, someone from your distant past or from right now. You're filled with this feelings of like that warm and fuzzy feeling of like puppy love. And as the roar fades, after a second, the feeling fades. This information was won for me at great cost by other members of the Order of the Seekers of Serenity. Kishar builds a war machine, unlike any other we've seen before. We were born of the Great Serpent, and we are brothers and sisters to his other creations, many of them powerful dragons and serpents as well. Kishar thought, why not make a dragon of her own? And so her pearlescents were born. Primal dragons created from raw, unfiltered human emotion, each one able to command emotions in a way we've never seen before. Creating weapons of terror, adoration, trust, beings able to shapeshift, infiltrate, and cause massive destruction. And I fear that now you are aware of their existence and are most likely one of their targets. If you find this long after the war is over, and Kishar is successful, I encourage you to throw this orb away and pretend you never saw anything. If the fight persists against Kishar's perversion of our ways, then the responsibility lies with you to make sure that others are aware of the dangers of the pearlescents. You passed my trials to be a student, so that means I believe you are of quality and character to pass on this message. If not, give Kishar my regards. And after a moment, the image fades. And as you do that, the orb starts to unlock and spin again, and you are filled with this downloaded information for a second that lets you know that the orb is, as they've called it, the orb of the arcane. It is filled with a store of information now available to you that would allow you to discover other places where the orders, basically other places where his students previously had gone. Their various wizards' towers or other schools, when you know is now ruined for scanning. So this information is sort of out of date. But you're basically downloading like a mental map of where you could find his students.
So that's what the pearlescents were.
That's even worse than what I thought they were going to be.
I agree. Thank the maiden she never got a chance to use them.
But like,
But it
what
makes me
happened to them
wonder.
then?
If she had a den of Yuan-Ti this whole time, where are they?
And as everyone's talking about this, you look to the back wall and realize that a section of the wall has now changed. You can see that it's starting to like move and pulse as the stone rewrites itself. You see where the depiction you've seen everywhere of that serpent slowly climbs up the wall and then turns around, and when it hits the ground, a door appears in the middle. And from the orb, you feel this light pulse, and this information enters your mind, which is a warning. What lays beyond is a true challenge for an arcanist. What you faced before proved you're ready to be a student. What you would face inside would prove you're ready to be a master. And the orb tells you that in order to access it, you need both the orb and the missing key that Naramsim took with him when he left. And if you can bring both back, you can open a challenge to prove you are ready to learn the wisdom of an Arcanophant.
Wait, Naramsin was an Arcanophant.
He's called himself one.
It pains me to say this. They weren't all scum.
He might be the only one that wasn't, honestly.
But either way, we can't open this door now. Nor do I think we're ready to.
Well, we would need the ruby.
So do we like try to just bust through the windows and get down, or do we backtrack through the whole place again?
And I will say at that point we're at 8:45. Let's take our break.
Sad.
And for those of you watching, thank you for joining us. We just wanted to let you all know for a little announcement reminder. For this Wednesday, we're going to be starting a special stream, which is going to be each member of the party taking on the role of a character in the Tales of Zadia, a tabletop game based on the Dragon Prince. So each of them will be taking on the role of a human or elf in the Dragon Prince universe, getting to go on an adventure that's basically a playtest for the new rules that are coming out. So you can join us on Wednesday at 7:30 to watch us sort of stumble our way through a brand new game system, Cortex, which allows a lot of like flexible, very narrative-driven combat and gameplay. And also you can see us kind of take a romp in a part of Zadia we haven't been able to see before. It is official, it's sanctioned by the people who made Dragon Prince, so it gives us a little sneak peek into more of the world. And if you like it, it might be an opportunity for you to sign up as well for the playtest. Play it at your own tables. Like I said, we're going to take a little breather. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you in just a bit. Welcome back, everybody. Just getting back from our break. We'll do a quick recap just in case anyone's joining us or wants to catch back up. Our party is deep below Truehome in the Lost Athenaeum of Naramsim, a powerful and ancient ardent scale wizard who it would apparently was more than just a wizard, but actually a member of the elite order of Arcanophants, powerful wizard, sorcerer, wizard, and clerics who commanded magic unlike almost any other in the ancient kingdoms of Sipar. And he's revealed upon receiving an orb of arcane, a powerful jade orb left behind by Naramsim for one of his students to discover, that some of his Arcanophants have chosen to use dark magic and powerful conjurations to create a creature known as a pearlescent, a dragon forged and created from pure human emotion, the emotions they extracted from humans in order to create an army of Yuan-Ti, unfeeling serpent folk, who they would use as fodder in their war. The war has long since ended, but Yuan-Ti still seem to exist, and now the question is, do the pearlescents exist somewhere hidden and lost to time? Armed with this knowledge and the powerful orb of arcane, the party now has an important question in front of them. Do they keep it for themselves, or do they return it to the people who asked them to come here, the Regaliant Atelier? And so we rejoin our party deep within Naramsim's Athenaeum. What would you like to do?
What I would like to do is drink heavily, but that is not an option.
Meadow
What are
Song
we
is
going to
not
do?
getting this over my dead
Well,
body.
here's the question. So obviously the orb needed one of Naramsim's students. That's why it hovered in front of Calvin. I think we can safely assume there's probably not another student of Naramsim amongst Meadowsweet's atelier. So the question is this information even going to be useful to them now, or can we just throw them this bone to help us get in good with them? And is there any way they would be able to access this message about the pearlescents? So if that's the case, then we definitely need to get rid of that. That's how I see it anyway.
What if the whole point
And I
was
was-
they were hoping to find this to be able to get info on the pearlescents? Maybe they have heard of them. I don't trust this man.
Oh, I don't trust him either. I fully do not trust him.
And I'll say, Calvin, just a note to you, as you've been holding the orb now for a minute, you get the feeling like it's trying to make a connection to you. The feeling that you often get when holding an item that requires attunement.
Do we have time for rest while we're here?
How long of a rest?
37 years.
I mean, that's like a day for me, so yeah.
My kind do not age the same way that you do. I have no problem with such a thing.
I have a life to live and things to do, so I'd prefer not to wait that long. But I think we could take an hour. I mean, we need to discuss things and get our story straight before we try leaving. So I think we have time.
This is a long-winded way of saying yes. So if you sit down and take an hour for your long rest, you are able to successfully attune with the Orb of the Arcane. I can get you all the nitty-gritty details of it later for the item itself. What you do know from bonding to it is it requires a wizard who has received Naramsim's approval in order to successfully bond to the item under normal conditions. It can double and serve as a spell book. So rather than have to maintain an actual physical spell book, now that you are bonded to it, it serves as a repository of arcane knowledge for you. You can store any of your spells, and as you learn new spells, you can add them to the orb with a reduction in cost of 1/2 on top of any school you would take from the cost of transcribing the spells.
But
Essentially, you
orb
still
that's
need
like
some
this
of the
big.
magical inks and powders.
But
Hmm?
it's an
It's not
orb
this
and it's
big.
like this big. Oh. I was picturing like
This big.
beach ball.
Yeah, I thought it was much larger.
No. It's like crystal ball, but slightly smaller. Like you could palm it in one hand, but it's a little bit big.
So to clarify something, and this is Joey, not Thorn, obviously. a wizard who is either someone who's not a wizard or someone who has not received Naramsim's approval as a student can't even access the information about where the student's towers are? Or is that separate from its use as a spellbook and the message?
You would believe that most likely someone could still gain a lot of information from it using magic. There are ways to gain some, but the more specifically, being able to function as an arcane repository is requires the attunement.
Okay,
and
so
above
we
and
still have to
beyond
worry about giving
that,
it to them.
it functions that way as a repository for all of that knowledge. It also has a number of pieces of knowledge stored in it already, including everything Naramsim knew about the Yuan Ti and the pearlescence. So anything that his spies were able to return to him. And
So
you also know now that you're
sending-
attuned to it, that it would allow you access to the further challenge, which you know that, and it informs you now that you're bonded to it, that the challenge would allow you to unlock more power within the orb. But you have not been found to be ready for the next step of the orb's power, essentially.
So basically, at this point, it's a fancy spellbook and a map to some dead wizards.
Most likely, yes. And a whole lexicon of information about the Yuan Ti and the pearlescent that was taken. What more, it functions as a magical spell focus. So if you use it for spell casting, you can get a +1 to your spell attacks.
The way I see it, we have a few options available to us. The first, give this to Lord Meadowsweet and gain his favor from Marge. The second, break this now and either tell him what we gained or that it was already like this. The third, turn it over to the scales for their payment and convince Meadowsweet that it was already gone, or merely tell him that we felt that this issue was bigger than us and that it had to go to them and risk losing his trust. Or fourth, keep it for ourselves. And tell either party what we found out either way, but... Chase, I can't hear you.
I was gonna say, it's kind of useless to most people except me at this point.
I think with some digging, though, they could probably still get the information out of it. So I'm now leaning away from giving it to someone and more towards keeping it for ourselves, namely Calvin, because you'll actually get some use out of it. And I don't really want it falling into other hands.
Yeah, I vote we keep it, and we just tell him that, maybe it looked like, this place isn't looking super great. It got lost or something. Maybe we could bring him something else really cool from here, and he won't be, as upset.
We can just go dive into that pond and get the other orb.
Oh, we could do that.
What other... Oh, the key to this room.
Yeah, the one that bamfed Twit and I.
The quartz crystal.
I mean, I think
as
the
far
rest
as
of this
we...
tower will be of... Sorry.
Like I say, as far as we know, that could be the orb that we were looking for.
Well, first, I think the entire tower will be of interest regardless. I think if we are to successfully deceive this lord, the story must be as close to what actually occurred as possible. My suggestion is that we saw the orb, and it was an illusion, and that the true orb is gone.
That's an option.
I mean, that's not a lie. It was an illusion.
We could also try to convince him that, the information in the orb is useless anyway, and just kind of convince him that it's a shiny bauble and try to redirect him to some of the other treasures within the tower.
Twit is walking up to the window and pulling out Lucretia and is muttering, "Does everyone think I could hit Aramir from here?"
Why would you want to hit Aramir from here?
Just so he doesn't spoil anything for us?
Because
Right,
you told
did
him we
tell
found
him
the
we found
orb.
We found the room with the orb, which, in fairness, was before we accessed the pedestal.
It was an early report, easy to play off into whatever story we choose. We got excited when we saw what we thought to be the orb until we discovered it was either broken, an illusion, or useless.
Twit is easily excitable.
Barnaby also has strong feelings about what we should do with the orb, I feel like.
Yeah, Barnaby also believes you should not.
Barnaby says, "Bork, bork, down with the man."
I'm down with that. Topple the bourgeoisie.
Preach, Barnaby. So I guess the question is which story seems most believable to, namely Lord Meadowsweet, because he's the one that we promised the orb to in theory. The Ardent Scale, you didn't really promise them anything, right, Thorn?
The offer was made to me, and I told them I would consider it. Now, even if we keep the orb for themselves, personally, I am in favor of revealing what we know to them after the fact, considering if they're going after these Yuan Ti Den, it is possible they will find something about these pearlescents. And we are skilled. I do not believe we are capable of destroying these dragons if they even exist on our own. Although I do have a concerning theory that I will tell you all later.
So I think the immediate issue is Lord Meadowsweet.
Yes.
And how to get around him while keeping the orb and information safe.
Are we all agreed we are keeping the orb and lying to Meadowsweet in some fashion?
Yes. What if we
Robin
try
and
to
Twin?
convince him? Because we saw the map with all the other towers. What if we convinced him that we think they're in the other towers, and then we can go secretly check out the towers? But he'll think that we're trying to find the actual orb.
I don't know how believable that would be. Twid, you've been quiet. Do you agree with this plan?
Twit is still trying to just look with Lucretia to see if they can get a good angle off for Meadows, or not for Aramir outside, and Twid's head will just turn around and go, yeah? I guess this is good. I don't particularly care either way, but I don't really want to come across giant dragons that are that color and make me feel weird.
That was a weird feeling.
Seems like a reasonable request.
Well, we can work on our story on our way out. I guess the next step is we also need to find a way out.
Is there a slide or something we could just take back down?
You don't see any slides or anything.
Why don't we just go back the way we came?
We could also pick up the extra orb that way.
Do the windows break if I smack them?
You hit them and they have the clunk of heavy rock.
They were transmutation spells of some sort.
So they're
so as you
one-way glass
as you touch
rocks.
them, as you touch the actual surface, it's not glass when you touch it. It feels still like stone.
Back the way we came, it is.
Much travel, all the school.
We can
So you
also
travel back
check
the
some
way
of the
you
other.
came.
I was just gonna say we can check some of the other rooms on the way out for more treasure.
Did you want to check any of those rooms?
Yeah, I'll take a look in the storage room, see if anything good's in there.
All right. So popping your head into the storage room, you find that the room beyond is plain and unadorned stone, unlike most of the other rooms you've seen in here. A small stone desk sits just near the front of the room, sort of blocking the front of the room off from the other half. The remains of what once might have been a set of ledgers, now aged down to brittle paper and desiccated leather, sit on the top. You can kind of see that like the leather has warped, dried out, and the pages within have grown all crackled with age. Behind the marble desk, you see a number of stone shelves that hold the remnants of urns, boxes, and baskets.
But it's like all starting to decompose or deteriorate.
Everything's deteriorating. You get to feel like this room wasn't under any kind of special preservation.
Nothing good in here. It's all rotting.
I wouldn't mind popping my head in the contemplation room while Thorn's looking in the storage room.
All right, so you take a look into the contemplation room. This room is very different. So in this room, it's a small circular room, bathed in a soft golden light that seems to grow from within several recessed alcoves in the walls, giving everything like this indistinct lighting that's very sharp and bright, but you don't really see the source. The floor sinks down into a pit filled with thick carpets and dotted with heavy seated cushions. Faintly, the sound of whistling sand can be heard echoing through the chamber. And as you step into it, there's just very much this like serenity, very like yoga retreaty vibe to the whole room.
Serenity now!
And you can see that there's a number of cushions and like small tables set throughout the whole room, probably enough to seat like 8.
Okay. So okay.
Do you
Yeah,
want
I'll
to
just take a
investigate or
moment.
anything?
Yeah, I'll like walk into the center of the room and just take a moment to like look around.
Give me an investigation check.
That's a 16 for investigation.
So you take a look around and you notice that one of the tables, the drawer isn't totally closed. And as you pull the drawer open and look down, you see it looks as though somebody has like folded up a small parcel on the inside. As you open it, you discover that within there is what looks to be a small little tablet with cuneiform writing on it. There's 8 gold pieces, 10 silver pieces, and this unique coin that is a little bit bigger than the others. That is gold with little bits of silver throughout it, making little glyphs, like the arcane glyphs you saw before. A small wooden wand about this long in this deep, burnt-looking, like dark color, and oddly enough, a needle that is of this soft, glowing silver. And it all looks like it's been hastily bundled together with a package of playing cards.
Well, that's more or less what I was hoping to find, so I'm just going to gather up everything and take it with me.
Absolutely.
Did you find anything, Flip?
Just a few interesting odds and ends. Might bear some further scrutiny when I have the time.
Twid will
And
look
I'll
in
rejoin the others.
Twid will look while they're doing this. Twid will look in the dormitorium.
So you open the dormitorium, and as you do, you see that it's a spiral staircase that also goes up.
Twid will go up.
You head up into the dormitorium room itself. As you reach the top of the stairs, the neat dorm room resembles more of a barracks with its Spartan comforts. The beds still sit neatly made, save for one at the near the very end of the line that is completely smashed into rubble. So bits of the desks or bits of the bed seem to just be crashed and broken everywhere. And in the very center of the rubble, wrapped in a thick blanket, lies what looks to be a humanoid form, essentially like tightly wrapped up in all the blankets.
Twid will mage hand pull the blankets apart, keeping a good. I don't know what's the range on mage hand. Is it 30 feet? 30 feet. Twid will keep about 20 feet between them and the body wrapped blanket thingy.
All right. So you pull it back, and as you do, the blanket starts to slowly pull away, revealing what looks to be just somebody like tore and ripped apart a whole bunch of fabric and had wrapped it around this humanoid form. As you pull the blanket slowly down, you see it is the pointed snout of a lizard folk underneath all the wrappings. And you can see that where the mouth opens, you can still see inside the rows of teeth that sort of like pulled away from the fabric. As you pull it loose, it sits up, and I'm going to need you to make for me a wisdom saving throw.
As you are scared shitless.
Dirty 20.
You feel this sense of dread well up inside of you. As the creature slowly shambles to its feet, the blanket falling away and revealing it to be like essentially a mummy, but made up from all like the torn and broken all torn and broken fabric. And so it starts to shamble forward towards you as you feel dread fill you, but it doesn't make you run away.
Twid is going to snap Selwyn back to where they are and go, Selwyn, get help!
At this point, we're going to roll for initiative.
And we're all on a different level of the tower.
You are Twid's alone. If you want to change this over to the battle map.
Oh, Evan, quick thing while we're rolling. When we
Yes.
took that short rest originally, I forgot that I was going to do this because I was dealing with the revelation of dragons. I have an ability that lets me burn my channel divinity to get a spell slot back, but then I get my channel divinity back on a short rest. So can I say I've done that so I get an extra spell slot and then also my channel divinity back after the rest?
Well, you had done that already today. Before the short rest, you had burned your channel divinity already.
I did?
Yep.
Oh, I never checked that off. Whoops.
I distinctly remember because I rewatched the episode.
No, I believe you. I just forgot to check it off. Yes, never mind. I have my channel divinity back at least.
Can you redo the initiative? For whatever reason, my initiative got deleted.
What do you mean?
Like, it had me as a 0, and now I fixed it. But my 22 should put me at the top of the list.
Oh, you're 22. Okay, yeah.
And you can
Sorry.
delete pork roll.
Done. All right, so unfortunately, none of you know that combat's going on. So for this starter, Calvin and Valen, both of you are just doing your own thing down on the main floor. Twid, you're up though. You're faster than the mummy.
We can't
hear you.
For Selwyn's turn, Twid has told Selwyn, go get help.
So Swellen disappears and buzzes off down the stairwell.
And Selwyn has 40 feet flying speed, if that helps at all. But
It does. The stairwell is not as big as the one that led up to Naramsim's level. It was a short stairwell. It was basically like one floor up.
And then Twit is gonna go, I didn't mean for this to happen. You and then reach into their bag and pull out Ophelia. And Twit is going to pop open Ophelia, and this time like a dark mist is gonna come out, and Twit is casting darkness on their own armor. So they're like
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second to look something up. Right, so you cast the spell, and as you do, a orb of darkness blows out in the space around you, creating darkness in the radius around you, and this basically plunging the room into darkness. You can still see through it with your vision.
And then Twit is going to back up into this corner.
Okay. So you and as you do, as your darkness fills the room, you notice that there is this soft hush and rustle of fabric, and then the sound of like things moving in the darkness around you, which you don't find weird because when you've cast the spell before, you've had this exact same experience.
And that's it.
All right, so Flip hasn't heard anything. Thorn hasn't heard anything. It's the mummy's turn.
I can't go any further.
Intelligence is awful low.
Not okay with what's happening.
You hear this, like, you have this dry hacking cough, like this kind of echo through you to the room, and you hear the of its feet sort of like dragging across the stone. But it doesn't seem like it knows where you are. That's its turn. Calvin Valen will go through Twiddlemop. On your turn, the small form of Selwyn comes bursting out of the doorway that Twid disappeared into, screaming, "Help, help, danger." Listen. Wait. Listen.
Did you know it could talk?
I just assumed it could.
But it waves its little tiny fairy arms, little fabric arms, and like flutters around. Listen. Danger. Danger.
Did Twid fall down a well, Lassie?
It's not safe to go alone.
And up on Twid's side, Twid is pulling out Lucretia and firing off an Eldritch Blast at this thing.
Okay, so your turn. Okay, give me your attack for Eldritch Blast then.
Oh no. 9.
9. Yeah, so you go to blast, and as you do, it shoots forward, and just as the creature sort of shuffles, and so the blast shoots wide and kind of carves into the wall behind it, and you see the creature sort of, the mummy turn its head with this, and as it does, you see little bits of like dried scales start to fall from between the folds of the fabric, and like a little bit of like dust just sort of like falls off of its body, and it looks back at the wall behind it, and then turns back around towards you. Flip, you're up. You have heard this. You have seen this. You know that Twid's in danger. This is your moment where you could just decide to do nothing.
I assume we're going after them, and I'm just gonna take off down into the hallway. But of note, my movement speed is only 25 feet.
Yes. So I will say if you use both of your movement and your action to move, you can consider yourself to be up at the top of the stairs in darkness.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably stop at the edge of the darkness.
Okay, so it's a 15-foot radius, so I would say you can be in the stairwell. When you go to look through the door into the room, it's just darkness beyond the door.
Yeah, I'll just, kind of get to the edge and Twin, do you need help? I can't see anything. Like, it's really dark. Like, normally I can see in the dark, but it's really dark. And I'm going to yell this loud enough for everyone else to hear, hopefully, too. And that'll be my turn.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Thorn, you're up.
So if I spend my movement and my action to get up there, that's 60 feet of movement?
Yeah, you can consider yourself to be there.
And yeah, that's all I can do. Except say, Twid, did you do this?
Can Twid respond?
Hope I didn't get crashed into.
Can Twid respond because it's not their turn, or no?
I will say you can respond, yes.
Yes, I'm in here. There's a mummy. Also, I'm making this darkness to hide.
The mummy's turn. Let me give it another. It hears your voice. It's not quite sure where you are, but it shuffles towards the sound of your voice. And so you can see it sort of slowly shuffling towards you, like looming over you because you're pressed up against the wall. And it... And it's going to make an attack to where it thinks your voice came from. Oh, nat 1. So it swings out at you, and its arm just connects with the wall, and you hear it, like, scrape across the wall. And you, like, a little bit of the scales, like, scatter down onto you.
Good thing I'm not tall.
Calvin, you're up.
Pork Roll will go first. He's got 40 feet of movement. Does he still have to double move?
Yes, you would still have to double move to get up there.
And it's still supernatural darkness and he can't see anything?
It is supernatural darkness.
Then I will also just double move up, and that'll be my turn.
Okay. Valen, you're up.
I am also going to use my action to dash to try to get up to the room.
Okay.
Behind everyone.
Yeah, I'll say that you can get up there. And we got you all spread out, but we'll just imagine that you're kind of in a little, like, queue standing out front of the door.
And I would definitely...
I didn't anticipate anybody was going to trigger this attack, this fight alone.
I yell, Twid, we're coming!
Twid, it's your turn.
Except it's dark and none of us can see the thing.
Twid is gonna go, ah! And just grab onto the mummy and use Shocking Grasp.
Alright, roll the hit. I will say with advantage because he's blind to you.
23.
Isn't Twid also blind?
Not with his supernatural sight, I don't believe.
Yeah. Twid can see in magical darkness because of their Eldritch Invocation. 23 to hit.
23 to hit, that hits.
Seven lightning damage.
7 lightning damage? So you reach out and you grab onto the edge of one of the bandages and pull it back so you can get like a grip on the flesh. As you do, the lightning scatters through. And I will say, even those of you watching the Supernatural Darkness, you see for a split second, just a little spark in the distance, and then it fades. But you hear the creature, like, it pulls its arm back and breaks your grip. and sort of just shuffles back a little bit in surprise.
And then
Wanna
Twit
do
is
anything
running.
else with your turn?
Twit is running past it and moving down there towards the far
Okay.
end.
So as you run to the far end of the room, the darkness goes with you, revealing to everybody else sort of standing in the doorway that there is this rotted ardent scale mummy, like basically made up of bed sheets, so like a Laurie Ashley mummy. Sort of standing there looking confused, and then the darkness just sort of slowly fading away, I assume with the sound of little like pitter patter of feet.
Clink, 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 clink.
Flip, you're up.
It's trying to kill me. Oh, and I was gonna have Selwyn start flying back up too.
I will say that Selwyn can get back up in the same amount of time as everybody else.
Okay. As the darkness is receding, it's just gonna be like, oh shit! And cast Fairy Fire. So I need the mummy to make a dexterity saving throw of 13.
It does not make that 13, so it is lit up by your fairy fire.
Excellent. Ghostly group hug as spectral arms reach out for the mummy.
So it's suddenly like the air fills with this faint bluish mist that then coalesces into these phantasmal arms that start to grab and pull at the mummy, essentially lighting it up and distracting it. Anything else you're going to do with your turn?
We can't hear you, Bandit.
Sorry. Gonna move in a little bit.
And then your turn?
Yes, that's the end of my turn. Sorry.
Thorn, you're up.
Now that I can see it and don't have to divine sense where it is, I'm going to run up and stab it. Um, 23.
23. Let's see. That will hit. So roll for your damage. And you roll with advantage, correct?
No, I did not. It was worse. So I do 9 points of damage on the first strike.
Okay, 9 points of damage on the first strike. And this is with your sword, correct?
Yep.
As it hits, you feel like it's not gaining as much purchase as you expected.
Gross. Well, I'm going to swing at it again, but I'm assuming a 10's going to miss.
10 misses.
Yeah, I don't hit him.
You still have advantage on that second swing?
That was with advantage. I rolled a 4 and a 2.
Oof.
Okay.
Duh. Yeah, it's not
I've
the
been
best
rolling
effort.
terrible all night.
All right, and then that will bring us to next in initiative order. The mummy. It can now clearly see you, Thorn, in front of it. So I'm going to have you give me a wisdom saving throw.
No.
What is it? 8? You are frightened until the end of the mummy's next turn. So you have disadvantage on any ability check or attack roll where the source of your fear is within line of sight, and you can't move any closer to the source of your fear, which, to be fair, you're 5 feet away from it already, so...
Not that terrible.
And then as it's sitting there, it's going to reach out one of its like gnarled, old, like crusted hand. It's going to slam out at you with its fist. Let's see. So that is a... $19 hits you.
Yep.
You take... You take 12 points of bludgeoning damage and 12 points of necrotic damage.
What the fuck?
Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, I was at full hit points. Now I'm at 8.
Good thing you started at full.
And you must make a Constitution saving throw for me.
Just know I can cast Spare the Dying from 30 feet away.
We're gonna need it. Wait, do I have disadvantage on this because I'm afraid of him?
No. It's ability checks and attacks, not saving throws.
13.
You feel like the necrotic energy sort of shoot through your body, and all of you watching can see these black veins sort of trace themselves over Thorn's normally like pale blue skin, but then they fade back in. All that's left behind is this ugly bruise. You feel as though like something kind of was pushing on you, but you've resisted it. Let's see.
Cool.
Yeah, Calvin, you're up.
Okay, first, Pork Roll is going to move up and attack, and he got an 18.
18 does hit.
18 hits for... Hits for 5 damage.
5 damage? Okay.
And then I'm just going to burn a second level spell slot on Magic Missile.
Alright. So cast Magic Missile for me then.
First one is 3 damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2. And then 5. And then 2. So 12 damage total.
Alright, so you cast the spell and a bunch of little missiles of Fear Force pepper against its body. So you kind of like take the hits and sort of shake under the pressure of it, but it slowly like starts to shamble its way back into standing firmly.
That's me.
Valen, you're up.
I feel like I need to come save you, Thorn.
I mean, do what you need to do. I'm not dead yet.
I know, I'm like, do I put myself in, like, smacking range of it to save you?
No.
Am I a bad cleric if I don't save you?
Pork Roll's there now. Pork Roll will save the day.
That is true. Pork Roll is there.
Pork Roll is our savior.
I picture having a very Sailor Moon moment, like, in the name of Velasta, I will punish you to the mummy. And I'm going to cast Spiritual Weapon behind it.
Okay. So that's your bonus action to cast Spiritual Weapon.
And slice at it. It's still lit up with Fairy Fire, right?
It is still lit up with
Yes.
Fairy Fire.
That would be a 21 to hit.
And I've thrown your Spiritual Weapon down on the field.
Amazing.
Yeah, 21 definitely hits.
So that will be 6 of, I believe, radiant damage? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's radiant.
It's going to be... So the scythe sort of appears with this burst of greenish fire, and as it spreads out, the scythe the blade comes sliding down. These little tiny like fairy fire globes of green floating around the scythe itself, and it slices down, carving into this mummy. As it does, several of the pieces of fabric like shatter and like basically slice open and start to fall off. And you just see like the mummy starting to kind of come unraveled under the force of the attack.
And then with my action, I'm going to hit him with a Sacred Flame.
Okay. Yeah, roll. He just has to make a dexterity saving throw, I believe.
Yes, dex save of 14.
He makes it.
Damn. All right.
The mummy does a matrix move.
Twiddlemop, you're up.
Twid is going to go, okay, I guess it should help since this is my fault a little bit, just a little, and is going to pull out their little diamond from their bag, and it's going to glow like a reddish color, and they're going to cast Chromatic Orb.
Ooh, what kind of chromatic orb are you casting?
Fire.
Fire? Okay. Roll it for me.
Nat 20!
Ooh, that's a crit. All right, roll your damage. And remember, double anything you rolled on the dice.
I think it was good. I saw arms up.
40 fire damage.
Shit.
So, in the darkness alone, Twin takes the little diamond and like tosses it up into the air and holds their hand up as it falls right. Do you which doll do you use for this? Remind me.
Twid does not use a doll for this.
Oh, okay. So this is just the diamond suspends itself just above your hand as you start to cast the spell. As you do, that deep red fire like bursts from the inside and it becomes this orb of fire. And you are using your ability as a warlock not so much to just conjure the fire, but contain it, because it has this like vicious desire to devour anything around it. And just holding it, you finally let out a burst of flame, and it speeds forward this tiny little bead of white hot heat. And as it slams into the back of the mummy, it hits with this like deafening thunk, and you can see it kind of just burst through its chest, sending all these little bits of like burning fabric all over Thorn. And then the mummy just goes up in smoke. And when the like upburst of fire disappears, the mummy's now completely desiccated and charred corpse just to the ground. And there's little bits of burning fabric like slowly falling in the air.
This is Joey talking. Tay, you should make like a doll body for your diamond so that the diamond is the head, like ball guy from Pokemon.
I'm not mad
I think
with
that'd be
that
fun.
idea.
Thorn is gonna pat themselves out, and as they're patting themselves out, burn the last of their lay on hands.
I was also going to run over to help pat you out because I know you don't like fire and cast Cure Wounds on you.
All right,
not
so
say no.
I will say it's 9:45, so it seems like a great time for us to end for the night there. Thank you everyone who joined us tonight. I just wanted to say before we sign out, just a reminder, we are taking a dive into playing Tales of Xadia, a Dragon Prince-based RPG tabletop game that's currently in playtest this Wednesday at 7:30. So you can join us as the cast takes on the roles of humans and elves from the land of the Tales of Xadia, and we try to tackle some Dragon Prince-esque adventures. We're going to be trying the Cortex system for the very first time, so we're all going to kind of be feeling our way through it, but we'd love if you could join us. If you're interested at all in information, I'm going to drop some more links to where you can find Tales of Xadia, so you can actually add it to your own tabletop if you'd like a chance to try the game in the chat. Besides that, we will be seeing you next Sunday at 7:30. If you've enjoyed this if you enjoyed the stream tonight, we would definitely appreciate a follow. It'll let you know whenever we do anything special, like the special stream for Dragon Prince, or when we're streaming in general for video games or other D&D content. Thank you all tonight, and stay safe out there.